And welcome back to Politics Unplugged. We're in the middle of an unprecedented heat wave in Arizona. So is the legislature working to do anything to address climate change? Here to talk about that is Sandy Bahr of the Sierra Club, who's been lobbying lawmakers on environmental issues for a long time. Thank you very much for being here. And I want to start with just the basic questions heading into the session. You had a Democratic governor who's just elected. Maybe there were some hopes there to address some aspects of climate change. Heading into the session, what were some things you thought could get done, and where are they now?
Well, we established priorities going into the session, and thinking about the last time we had a Democratic governor and a Republican legislature under Janet Napolitano, there were things that we were able to accomplish, some of them administratively and some, via the legislature. But overall, we were trying to get a climate resiliency committee established so Arizona would have a plan, because we're experiencing the impacts. We should have a plan. Mm-hmm. And it would be good to have a multifaceted plan that legislators were actually engaged in as well. That bill and many others on clean energy, on electric vehicles, did not get a hearing. Yeah, None of the bills get hearings.
I was going to say, we'll get to that in a second, okay. But what became pretty apparent pretty quickly, Republicans had a very different agenda, and they were passing bills through the legislature. None of them were signed into law. Some of them ended in committees. Some of them were voted down on the floor. Some were vetoed by the governor. But it was clear that if you look at the bills put together by Republicans, their agenda was very different from yours. They're very much were opposed to solar power, building, wind power, these kinds of things. Talk to us a little bit about the bills you saw addressing that from the Republican point of view. What were they trying to accomplish?
Yeah, there were a number of bills just trying to hinder development of solar energy, which doesn't make sense from a climate perspective, but also economically. We have a lot of solar companies and solar projects that are bringing a lot to our state, and why in the world they would want to get in the way of that is beyond me. But they had a bill they called a decommissioning bill that set up special standards for solar and wind, no standards for any other kind of development. And what it did is created a super confusing process. And when you have confusion, you have entities that are like, oh, no, maybe I would rather do something elsewhere. So luckily, that bill did not go forward. And most of them did not. They had bills where they wanted to prioritize things other than sustainability relative to utility planning, and again, move into the Corporation Commission's domain. And not having sustainability and not having anything relative to climate in the planning is just foolish. We know it's here, we know it's happening. The utilities themselves know that. You have to plan for it.
Yeah, and before we get into what was proposed, that never got a hearing, I do have to ask, the lawmakers now, the Republicans you speak to, is there still a sense there that they, don't believe in climate change being real, or it's being overhyped? Your conversations with them, what's your sense?
Yeah, well, I guess the first thing is a lot of them don't want to talk or listen or have a conversation. But even in committee, yes, my sense is that they're in denial, or at least, or they don't care. Like, we're not going to be around. We're not going to be in the legislature where the real problems hit. So whatever. But a number of them won't even talk about it, won't say the words. And even just yesterday, I was at a committee hearing on air quality and energy, and one of the representatives was focused on how great fossil fuels are and how much it was like, I heart fossil fuels. All right, well, we need to move beyond them because they are literally killing us. And it's our air quality, water, and the climate, and they're just not seeming to get it.
And all this happening, again, historic heat wave right now. We're running low on water. We're kind of saved by a very wet winter last year. Otherwise, there'd be even bigger problems right now.
Right, fires. Yeah, I know. It's you know, everyone seems to get that we're experiencing these impacts, and they cost us a lot of money. I mean, they cost lives, of course, and we should be concerned about that. But they also cost us a lot of money. And doing things, investing, is going to be cheaper than inaction. Yeah.
And speaking of inaction, there are a bunch of bills that were proposed looking to address some of these issues. And if you look at all of them, one of the trends I saw is there were some proposals for just some study committees. And Republicans didn't even want to hear bills to look at and study problems.
Like agrivoltaics.
Yes.
Looking at agriculture and solar and how you can blend those. Other places, they do it really well, and it's a real benefit for the climate, and it benefits farmers. You know,
why wouldn't you want to just study it? I mean, what are they telling you when you go? I mean, again, a lot of them aren't talking to you. We'll talk about that in a second. But well, you know, what do you hear? Why wouldn't they even hear something like this? Why don't they want to study this issue?
Well, I say, well, if you already know everything, then you're not willing to listen to something. But seriously, I think that they're concerned that people will raise issues that makes it look like they should really deal with the issue. Like the study committee might find that they should have a bill that would help with this, or really point out that solar is beneficial, and they don't want to see that. They don't want to hear that.
And I want to wrap up this segment too, because I do want to get your thoughts. It kind of, I think this gives you a sense of how things change at the legislature. When we all started way back in the day, there was an environmental committee that was chaired by Republicans looking at environmental issues. How has your relationship changed, particularly with Republicans, over those years? Because you know, you used to be able to have conversations with them. They maybe disagreed strongly with you, but you had conversations, and now you say they're not even talking to you.
Right. One new legislator I tried to meet with had her assistant call me back and say she doesn't have any time the rest of the session. And so that's the kind of response that we get now. Previously, yeah, there would be disagreements, but you would have a conversation. And sometimes you would find common ground with unlikely people just by having that conversation. But if you can't have the conversation, you're never going to find the common ground. And that's really been the case with a number of newer Republican legislators. They don't want to meet. They don't want to hear. They don't listen very well in committee. And, you know, it's unfortunate because it really creates a hostile environment for, you know, for those of us who really care about Arizona and are working hard to try to make our state a better place to live.
All right, we're going to have to end it right there. Thank you very much for joining us. And up next.